okay, but more importantly, came up with what the standard deviation was. I didn't bring the next one. Do you still have the data in your calculator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just go ahead and do all this? You shouldn't need your iPad right now. So close it. Anybody who got this right can stop playing with it.
I have the data.
Okay, what's
I have the
this?
data.
1.408.
Okay, and N was 6? Okay, and so. They wanted to do a test to determine if they could advertise that it gets 30 miles per gallon, and this was the resulting fuel efficiencies. Is it sensitive to enough to detect if the actual fuel efficiency is 28 miles per gallon? So everybody knew that the null hypothesis was going to be mu equals 30 to start with, the original one, right? And the alternative would have been that mu was less than 30. Okay? And the null hypothesis, which is what we always drew when we were talking about power, we did the null first. The null hypothesis would have been mu is 30, and the standard deviation, which would, in this case would have been the standard error, right? Not standard deviation, would have been 1.4081 over the square root of 6, correct? Okay. This is where I think some of you got mixed up. If you had checked conditions with this, you would have realized that the original test, I know you didn't have to go and do the original test, I wasn't grading you on that, but this was a t-test for means, not a z-test, correct?
Yes.
Okay, a t-test for means. All right, now, and since it was a one-sided test on the original thing, here's where if you set alpha at 5%, here's where the 5% would have been, correct?
Yes.
Now, does everybody agree on the original test that from here to the left would have been when you rejected it, and from here to the right you would have failed to reject? When we were talking about power then, we wanted to figure out what is this cutoff value, right? What was the cutoff value that you would give me if it's the bottom 5%? How many of you gave me negative 1.645, or gave me negative 1.96, or gave me negative 2? How many of you used one of those three choices? What's wrong with those choices?
Those are z values?
Those are z values, right?
Yes.
So what I really needed was the t asterisk, okay? And so that would have been for 5 degrees of freedom, because you'll know if you got, does that make sense? Because that feels, oh shit, I feel so stupid, right? Why do you have to check conditions when you're actually asked to do a hypothesis test? Check the conditions and then name the test.
So you don't mess it
It's
up.
so I can grade you and take points off, okay? But really, if you had done that with this, you would have said, oh, it's a t-test. The whole thing is a t-test. No place in here do we have sigma, okay? So for 5 degrees of freedom for the bottom 5%, it would have been, let me tell you, negative 2.015.
Why is it negative 2.015? What confidence level?
Negative 2.015. Well, depending on what you set alpha at.
I set alpha at 5%, but I think I got a different t-value for the first one.
I look at the upper tail probability of 5%.
Yeah.
5%, and then I went to 5,
Five.
and then 2.0. Oh, I went to 2.5 something like that, so because I did 95%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not a confidence interval.
Okay, that's right.
So one-sided, okay? But there were other, I think you made a mistake past that, and that's what, I want everybody on board, like, with the logic, okay? So, should it come up with a T cutoff score, I used a Z. If that wasn't your only problem, I mean, yes.
My problem was I set the alternative as not equal to 30. So on the t table, I was unable to find 0.025 on the, what would be 97.5? Or what would it be?
95%.
It would be the same? because you'd only have .025 on both sides.
I know, it would have been 2.571 as the T score.
Okay.
It's, do you want a T table to be looking at while we're talking about this?
Yes, ma'am.
Look, I honestly, because I'm not gonna give you an example that's exactly like the other example, and it never occurred to me that the fact that on the worksheet or whatever you were talking about before, that had sigma was given versus not being given, to me, that seemed like such, that wasn't like I was trying to catch you on that, it's just that it, doesn't it make more sense that sigma wouldn't be given,
Yeah.
and it would be a T test? As I say, there's another problem we've got, what?
So I know that you go to the Z table and.
I'm not using the Z
I
table.
meant T table. And you said alpha at .05, what percent do you look at?
Can I just wait until I give you these? Because I think if I talk while you're looking at it, how many what's a T score? How many standard deviations?